Hello everyone. This is the 19th part of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Chapter 69, Home, Potion, and Cure. Quinn turned back and closed the door behind him. He nodded to George and Elliot, who was standing there as he closed the door. I will be back in a few. Turning back towards Alan, Quinn slowly walked to the chair in front of the old man and took a seat. Hello, Mr. Allen, greeted Quinn. Alan could see the clear signs of occlumency on Quinn's face. So, I hear you messed up, Alan spoke, and Quinn just stared at his mind art teacher's usual, almost ever-present smile. He hadn't changed a single bit in the 3 years. Alan D. Baddeley was still the joyous old man who had a penchant for peeking into others' minds. I did. I really did. Quinn nodded in response. Alan was here to help him, so Quinn didn't gain anything from lying or hiding things. And, currently, with his occlumency operating full-time, he had a serious edge of logic in his thoughts. I want you to ready your bracelet and get ready to defend yourself. Quinn got straight to the point. This is what is happening to me. Ah, yes. The rampaging magic I was told about. I think that is a good place to start. Alan brought his hands together and touched his focus bracelet with his other hand. Go ahead. I am ready. The two people in the room didn't waste any time catching up after 3 years of separation. Both knew that they could do it afterward. Quinn desperately wanted to know what was happening to him and solve it to get this crisis behind him. While Alan could see that Quinn wasn't having a good time. Okay, here I go. The next second, Alan immediately pulled up a transparent shield just as a spell was hurled toward him. Oh, that was close. He watched with keen attention as various activities of magic manifested in the room. There was nothing to be observed from the out-of-control magic. As the name suggested, it was out of control. After Alan was satisfied seeing this unusual sight, he turned his eyes to his young student, who had his eyes squeezed shut and struggle on his face. Immediately Alan sent a mental probe into Quinn's mind, and he was a little surprised to see that Quinn's shields were fully down. Right now, he was no different from a person without an occlumency shield. Alan dove into Quinn's mind and saw that the mindscape had changed in the last 3 years. Oh my, now that is a magnificent structure, Alan smiled as he saw the enormous building in front of him. Hogwarts Castle stood in all its magnificent glory. Even the surroundings were changed to look like the surroundings of the real Hogwarts. He built this in 3 years? Impressive. Alan was impressed because of the sheer size of the castle. He could tell that the castle was functioning memory storage and not a work in progress before a memory gateway initiation. But right now, he didn't have time to admire the structure, and neither did he need to go through Quinn's memories. Let's go check his emotional status, said Alan, and instantly, he was not in the mindscape with the enormous castle. The space he arrived in was grey, with the color tending towards black rather than white. Inside the grey, there were dark distortion-like vortexes littered around the space. Well, with his magic out of control, it makes sense that his head is not right, noted Alan as he looked around. He loves magic after all. Alan was standing in Quinn's emotional representation. An experienced legilimens or occlumens could access their own or someone else's sentimental representation. You couldn't influence emotions from here, and this was just a place you could judge a person's emotions. Emotions were a complex concept that every mind arts user studied extensively. And if they were serious about learning about mind arts and the mysteries of the mind, then there would come a time for every mind art user when they would have to confront their emotions. The dark grayness in Quinn's emotional representation clearly showed that Quinn was in a darker state of mind, and the darker vortexes that he was struggling with some mental problems. Take Alan for an example, he was an avid advocate of mental health. And if anyone got the almost non-existent opportunity to get a look inside Alan's emotional representation, then they would find that it was a very light color of gray, a color very close to white. The lighter the color of the space, the better mental condition they were in. Alan took care of his mental condition and didn't have any delusions about himself. He confronted almost every issue about himself and got to the root of the problem. In doing that, he would attain closure and help his mental situation. A complete white emotional space was only present in infants, toddlers, or very young children. Any age above that would have different shades of grey because such was life, and they were sentimental beings, no person was perfect. The distortion-like vortexes were the real cause of problems, they were what messed up with Quinn's mind and, in turn, his magic. Removing his eyes from the grey space, Alan gazed at the bright and colourful arrangement in front of him. What Alan was seeing was a vast network of light orbs of various sizes connected to each other. The connections between them were of varying lengths and pulsed from time to time. Alan could think of every colour he knew, and he would find it in the bright and colourful network. There were so many connections that, to the naked eye, it was a complex network of lines and orbs. But, to a mind arts specialist like Alan, it was nothing but an open book. No matter how many times I see this, it never ceases to amaze me, murmured Alan as he looked at the complex network. This was the core of Quinn's emotions. Every emotion he had ever felt connected to each other in a complex network. This was a core part of Quinn West's personality. Personality was defined as the character sets of behaviors, cognitions, and emotional patterns that evolve from biological and environmental factors. Emotions heavily influenced a person's personality and attitude toward things. The more you experienced various situations, the more you form opinions, and with those opinions would come emotions regarding those experiences. This isn't out of coordination, noticed Alan. There was nothing wrong with Quinn's emotional network. He isn't feeling unnatural bouts and spurts of emotions or anything else. Well, Quinn did state that whatever was done to him came undone. Alan remembered the day when George West personally had come to his door to request his help. It was a shock to see the influential man contact him personally and not through someone else. George had told him that Quinn had requested his help. The initial information given to him was that Quinn's magic was out of control, and it was because he was under the influence of some kind of magic. Quinn stated when the magic came undone, his magic went out of control. This enough for now, said Alan. When Alan came out of Quinn's mind, he spoke to his student. All right, you can stop, Quinn, spoke Alan. With a sudden, sharp, and erratic intake of air, Quinn clamped down on his occlumency. Immediately, all magic stopped, and Quinn went expressionless. Quinn's eyes remained closed for around a minute before he opened them and flatly asked, "What is wrong with me?" "Other than a darker state of mind, I have found nothing wrong with your mind," replied Alan. "Of course. But a shout from Quinn cut Alan's explanation. "What?" Immediately, Quinn's occlumency cracked slightly under the bout of anger. "Did you just not see the rampant magic? How can you say that nothing is wrong with me?" Rampant magic once again manifested in the room as the temperature rose. Alan sighed before he cast magic, and immediately Quinn's pupils dilated, and he calmed down. "I am using mind magic on you to calm you down," spoke Alan. "How are you feeling now?" "Calm down?" Quinn nodded as he patched up his occlumency and detached his emotions from himself. Alan also retrieved his magic as Quinn brought himself under control. "As I was saying, there is nothing wrong with your emotions right now. They are functioning like a normal person, albeit a normal person under a lot of stress," Alan spoke in a calming voice, making sure that he didn't agitate Quinn. "But, we have only started. There is a good chance that I might have missed something, so have patience. You have already been like this for a few weeks, you can wait for a little while." Quinn nodded in reply and patiently waited for Alan's instruction. "I will need some memories," Alan said as he crossed on his lap. "I need to know what actually happened to you." Alan didn't even ask for Quinn's account of the entire situation and went straight for the memories. He was sure that his student would recognize that showing memories would be much more efficient and resourceful than Quinn telling him things, using words. "I expected that," replied Quinn. "It took me days under this condition to create a collection of memories that will get you up to speed." "Oh ho ho, you are prepared." "That is nice," Alan remarked at the news from Quinn. "I had weeks to think about this situation. Even though I wasn't able to get myself better, I did make sure that I had everything in hand for you." Alan tilted his head and asked, "What would you have done if I had refused?" Quinn mechanically shrugged, "I wasn't thinking about that. I am sure that if you refused, grandfather would have brought in someone else. But, if I am being honest, I knew you would come." If Quinn didn't have his occlumency detaching his emotion from him, then he would have been smiling, But he couldn't even do that, as his magic would have come alive and shot out fireworks into the air at the very least. Alan laughed at that statement. Well, it turned out you were right. Here I am sitting in front of you. The old man rubbed his hands before saying, all right, show me those memories. A mental representation of Quinn waited inside his mindscape with a book in hand. He looked up to see Alan manifest into the mindscape. Let's get started, said the representation of Alan as he walked to Quinn. He looked at the book in Quinn's hand and asked, is that the collection? Quinn nodded as he raised his hand. Put your hand on it. Alan followed, and without a break, put his hand on Quinn's memory book, and immediately the memories, snippets from the time Friar told him the riddle to the memories of a few days back, greeted Alan. It took Alan just over a minute to go through every single memory present in the compilation. It would have taken Quinn at least a couple of hours to do the same. Meet me outside, Alan said, and promptly disappeared from Quinn's mind. When Quinn opened his eyes to return to the real world, because right now, to do anything inside his mind took his entire concentration, and he couldn't operate in the real world and his mindscape at the same time. Alan sat in deep thought about what he had seen. The memories had given him a lot to think about, and a lot of information to process. Well, did you find something? Quinn asked in impatience. There were a lot of snippets, said Alan as he stood up. Quinn looked up at the standing man, waiting for the mind arts master to tell him some good news. I have some ideas. Give me some time to analyze. Alan walked to Quinn and put a hand on his head, ruffling his hair. Until then, sleep. Quinn was confused to hear it, but the next second, darkness took over him. Alan looked at his sleeping student and sighed. There were a lot of things to go over in Quinn's compilation. He needed some time to think those through, and he needed some hours for preparation, so he just put Quinn to sleep until then. Quinn opened his eyes with a groan. He sat up on the bed and just stared forward toward the wall. Quinn frowned when the wall ahead wasn't part of his dorm room or his room in the West Manor. Where am I, he thought, and immediately he recalled what happened before he went to sleep. He was in the training hall sitting across Alan when he put his hand on his head, and then everything went black. He put me to sleep, didn't he? Spoke Quinn. He ruefully smiled at the old man's actions. It fit Alan's personality, dropping him without warning. But then immediately, Quinn's eyes widened as he recalled he wasn't using his occlumency. Every morning since the accident, Quinn would wake up, and within a few seconds, he would be assaulted with pain that would function as a reminder to pull up his occlumency. Right now, there was no pain and, more importantly, no outbursts of magic. Good morning. Quinn moved his head to see Alan sitting in a chair with a book in his hand. A small table with tea and snacks stood beside him as he enjoyed the treats while reading his book. Did you cure me? Quinn asked with hope. For the first time in weeks, his voice wasn't flat and had emotion in it. Of course not, child. Alan smashed the hope within seconds. You should know better that your condition is much more serious to be cured overnight. Quinn closed his eyes in shattered hope and felt miserable that he wasn't cured, but opened his eyes to ask the question. Then why isn't my magic acting up? What did you do? Currently, he was feeling as normal as he had ever been. His magic wasn't acting up, his emotions weren't detached, and he felt whole again. Alan sipped some tea from his cup before answering, I gave you a magic dampening potion 10 minutes before I woke you up. A magic dampening potion? Quinn exclaimed. He felt around for his magic and felt that his connection to it was weak. Something like that exists? If he had known that something like this existed, he would have used it a long time ago. Oh yes, magic dampeners exist. Alan chuckled and took a bit of a scone before continuing. They aren't used that much, so it is not strange that you haven't heard of them. Quinn didn't care that he wasn't aware of something like a magic dampening potion. He was just glad that something like this existed. Thank magic. At least with this, I won't have to keep using my occlumency to keep my magic under control. About that, Alan closed his book and stared at Quinn. I am afraid that things aren't that simple. What do you mean? Quinn felt dread build up in his ribcage. The reason that the magic dampening potion isn't famous or widely known is that it is harmful to the drinker. Alan dropped a bomb on Quinn. What? What do you mean it is harmful? If someone is put under the effects of magic dampening potion every day, all day, then their body starts to malfunction. Alan imparted grim knowledge to Quinn, who was under the effects of the magic dampening potion. Tumors form in various parts of bodies, the immune system starts to weaken, multiple organ failures, degradation of senses, and overall the body starts to give up. Then why did you give it to me? Quinn screamed at his teacher, who just that he had given him a potion that could kill him. One dose of the potion won't do anything like that. You would need multiple doses every day for a certain period will cause what I was talking about. Alan waved his hand in dismissal as if it wasn't a big deal. Then he dropped a bomb. But yeah, you will be taking it every day. Quinn wanted to shout and scream, but he was just too much in shock to do so. He had just woken up, and this was the first thing he heard. He already knew how this day was framing out to be. Please, explain. Alan cleared his throat before starting. You can sense your magic, right? It is not completely cut off from you. Quinn nodded. The connection to his magic was weak, but it was there. The potion I gave you is a diluted recipe. It just weakens your connection and doesn't hamper it completely. Alan raised one finger in his right hand. This is the first thing that will reduce the negative effects of the potion. He raised another finger and continued, the dose you will be given will only work for maybe 6 to 7 hours. So, the rest of the time, your magic will still be rampant, and well, you will have to use your occlumency. That also reduces the progress of negative effects of the potion. Alan smiled and finished, that way, I can keep giving you the potion for an extended period, and the effects won't creep on you like they are supposed to do when given the full treatment. Alan made air quotes as he said treatment. Wait, Quinn raised his hand to speak up, all the things regarding the potion are fine, well, no, it is not fine, but let's put that aside for a second. I want to know the cure for this. I can keep taking the potion, but it will not help me cure anything. Alan put down his empty teacup and said, Quinn, there is nothing to cure with you. You are fine. There is nothing wrong with you. Alan enunciated every sentence to stress them. Quinn stared at the mind arts teacher with an expression that was a mix between shock, confusion, and disbelief. What do you mean there is nothing wrong with me? Chapter 70, Aftermath, Questions Answered. What do you mean there is nothing wrong with me? Quinn was stunned to hear Alan's statement. Here he had been having trouble controlling his magic. Whenever he set his magic free, it would go berserk and hurt him in the process. Just so that his magic doesn't go out of control, he had tortured himself and detached his emotions from himself. He had learned the very first day he had read about the emotional aspect of occlumency that blocking his emotions for long periods was harmful. But he still did it because it was the only way he could think. Now, the old man in front of him was telling Quinn that he had nothing wrong with him. What the hell do you mean by that? Alan sighed at his student and explained. Quinn, I diagnosed you while you slept. I didn't find anything wrong with you. Alan raised his hand when Quinn tried to speak up. I know your magic isn't under your control. But that isn't a disease or injury. Then why is acting out and rampaging? Before I answer that, let's go back to the start, Alan suggested and put up his first question. Tell me, what do you think happened to you? I was clearly under the control of magic or curse. It all started when I fell unconscious in the vault. Quinn recalled the time when he returned to his dormitory. It lowered my inhibitions. I did plenty of things that I wouldn't do. Plus, the vault made it so that I won't return to it for exploration. I was planning to return to the vault but changed my mind and didn't visit. I was clearly under some kind of mental curse. Quinn trailed off at the end and then raised his voice at Alan. Why in the bloody name of magic didn't occlumency work? I regularly spend time on that damn magic. Why didn't it work for months? Tell me, Quinn, what is your current system of occlumency defense? Alan asked a question from his student. He already knew the answer to the question, but was walking his student through the process so that he would arrive at the answer. It hasn't changed from the time we ended our lesson, said Quinn. He wondered why Alan was asking him the question. A shield layer built under a defense layer, with another set of the same configuration following under the first set. Correct, and I have to say that you have made noteworthy progress in strengthening your shields. They have grown quite a bit since the time I taught you. Alan gave Quinn praise on his progress before asking. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that right now, I am inside your mind? Definitely, Quinn replied almost immediately. He knew his teacher's personality. He had spent a couple of years under his tutelage, and he was sure that Alan was in his mind the entire time. Did you sense me entering? Or can you feel me operating legitimacy right now? No, but where are you going with this? Asked Quinn. He wasn't following whatever Alan was trying to show him. Alan sighed before he said, Quinn, with your current system of occlumency, you won't be able to detect anything as long as they get past your shield. If someone, or in this case something, passes through your defenses, you will have no idea that they are inside. Your defenses will tell you that there is an incoming attack if they are strong enough, but once the attack is inside, your defenses won't do squat. Alan folded his hands on his lap and continued, don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with the system you are following. You can build your defenses until they are at my level. There is no limit there, but your system of occlumency defenses doesn't have any other feature beyond that. Your defenses won't do something that it wasn't designed for. Alan pointed at himself and said, if someone manages to break past my covering shields, that doesn't mean my defense is over. I have various fail-safes present beyond that to protect my mind. He pointed at Quinn and continued, you, on the other hand, have nothing other than your detection layers and shields. You have the castle and the manor inside, and you have sorted the memories in a way that even if someone gets past your defenses, they would have a mighty difficult time getting to the memory they are looking for. And, while I was teaching you, we never went over the possibility of something like this happening. We worked on legilimens breaking into your mind to get access to your memories. We never worked on something like this that would target you in such a way that would alter your personality. Alan paused and stated, you don't have a way to protect your mind from being manipulated like this. But I worked hard on this. Quinn was shocked to hear that his defenses were useless. He wasn't expecting to hear that after the time and effort he put into his occlumency. I know you worked hard. Your defense aspect and your efficiency aspect have grown beyond what I had thought you would be able to accomplish at your current age. I can assure you that your progress is quick, and other than myself and some select individuals, your speed of progress is second to none. Then came the but of the sentence. But your progress in the emotional aspect is lacking. While you are able to detach your emotions so that become nothing but a buzz at the back of your head, and that allowed you to keep your magic in check all this time. Alan had seen the memories, and with his level of legitimacy, he didn't just watch the memories like a film and was able to feel what Quinn was feeling during his memories. You have done nothing to make sure that your emotions won't be manipulated. The one to blame here is time. You just didn't have enough time to devote to the emotional aspect while you learned other magic. When Alan said Quinn's progress was below himself and some other individuals, he didn't consider that Quinn devoted time not just to occlumency but to various other fields of magic. Quinn had recovered from the reeling shock that his occlumency had failed him because he hadn't designed it sufficiently. Shields. Quinn said something that Alan wasn't able to hear, so he leaned forward and asked. Pardon, I didn't get that. Shields, you said my shields are strong. Why didn't they stop the magic from entering my mind? Even if my emotional aspect occlumency was lacking, my defense aspect was strong enough to block out an attack. Alan nodded to that question and gathered his thoughts to answer. Friar? Was that his name? Yes, Friar. The ghost who gave you the riddle said that another ghost had ceased to exist because of that vault. What did you think about that? That the vault was harmful to ghosts, what about it? I am not a ghost, said Quinn. He would have answered better if he was in another time, but right now, Quinn was defending his occlumency. All right, what are ghosts? Asked Alan. A ghost is the imprint of the soul of a once living magical, and as such, a type of spirit. These fleshless spirits are either afraid of death or have some extremely potent connection to the locations they haunt. Quinn gave him the textbook definition of a ghost. Alan smiled as the words were right there. Exactly, they are imprints of souls. Imprints of souls have similar properties as actual souls. You get what I am talking about, right? Quinn gave it a thought, and after some time, he exhaled. The curse was soul-based. Is that what you are talking about? Alan made a face that said, kind of, but not really. The curse was emotion-based, but I can safely conclude that the curse definitely had a soul aspect. It might as well have been the entry point, as after that neither your mind nor soul had no defense for your emotions. Alan gazed at Quinn as he thought about how to explain it to his student. Emotions are connected to both mind and soul. Some believe that it might even be connected to the body, as negative emotional states can affect physical output. But emotions are definitely connected to mind and soul. Mind connection, you already know, and the existence of ghosts show conclusive proof of the soul connection. They remained in the mortal world because they had unfinished business, whether in the form of fear, guilt, regrets, or overt attachment to the material world, who refused to move on to the next dimension. The choice to come back as a ghost was emotionally based. You never noticed something was wrong with you the entire time the curse was active. You made decisions and acted in ways that you wouldn't have. A lot of things should have triggered some suspicion inside you, but they never did. Not once did you think that there was something wrong with you. All of this was because the curse was acting on your emotions and, in turn, your personality. It attacked from two sources, both closely connected to magic, mind and soul. Quinn just grabbed his head and groaned. He was regretting the decision to dive into the second vault. What about my magic rampaging out? Quinn questioned. How is that connected to my magic? What about the changes the curse brought to my magic before it broke? About that, I have no idea how the curse, if we can even call it that at this point, increased the capacity of your magic, but I can tell you that the increase in control was because emotion and will are essential aspects of magic. The curse definitely brought your emotions close to your magic. Your magic responded to your emotions better than ever while you were under its influence. A magical's emotional state can affect their inherent abilities. For instance, an agent of the Statute of Secrecy Task Force was said to have produced better results with their in-charm after channeling the goodwill they received from innkeepers they met on their travels into their spellcasting. While in service, Gareth Greengrass, a senior researcher in the Department of Mysteries, at one point, documented over 700 instances of spells being cast in anger. He found they were all more powerful than even the casters themselves had thought themselves capable of producing. The curse targeted your emotions with cardinal sins, or the capital vices, or the 7 deadly sins. Quinn collapsed back into his bed, and while gazing at the ceiling, he asked, "Do continue." It triggered your emotions when you felt things that were even remotely in connection to the cardinal sins. Alan listed all the 7 sins. Pride, greed, envy, sloth, wrath, gluttony, lust. Let's talk about some examples of how the curse affected you, spoke Alan as he got up from his chair and walked around Quinn's bed. First, let's take an example of how it amplified your emotions from something small to an exaggerated state. Your first duel in that dueling club of yours. The mention of the event brought Quinn's memory of the duel against Miles Bletchley to the surface. You felt a little insulted by the way he looked at you. Tell me, what would you have done if you had another chance and weren't influenced by the curse? Quinn didn't have to think much about it, and he answered, a single disarming spell and end the duel within seconds. I would have ended the duel so fast that he wouldn't have a chance to even twitch a muscle, but I wouldn't have humiliated him by not even drawing my wand. That was too flashy for me. Quinn could hear Alan's footsteps as he walked around. That was wrath. He insulted you, and that triggered wrath. Your opponent just looked at you funny, and I think you decided to humiliate him even before the nasty spells he shot. I guess you are right. Quinn thought about the times he had been angry in the last few months. Some regrettable decisions flashed through his mind. Next, let's move on to the times when the curse took advantage of your body to take effect, Alan spoke, moving on to the next observation. If Quinn could see his teacher's face, he would have found a huge shit-eating grin on the old man's face. Body? When did the curse affect my body? Quinn wasn't sure there were changes to his body. Quinn was sure that his body wasn't touched by the curse. I am talking about puberty, Quinn. Quinn froze in his bed, and he immediately knew Alan was talking about lust. I am sure that you wouldn't have included those memories in the memory package, but you were working with logical thinking that spanned for days on end. So, a lot of those ended up in there. Alan laughed for a while before continuing. Lust triggered in short, but many bursts, and that was because of your hormones. You were so affected by it because you started to feel attracted to the fairer sex. Alan chuckled at the embarrassment his student was feeling. Lust just took over from that point on. I really saw youth in there. Quinn had spanked the monkey, jacked the beanstalk, auditioned with his hand puppet, charmed the snake, took the dog out for a walk, or wanked, twice a day without fail. Now laying in his bed, Quinn remembered the times he had been doing something and just ended up staring at the passing girls. Then there was the incident with Daphne. Damn it, why did I have to say that Daphne? Quinn mushed his face into the pillow. Lust might have been the most enjoyable, but just like others. It made him do things he regretted. Let's move on, please. A muffled shout from Quinn made Alan laugh. All right, let's move on to the case where Curse made sure that you won't go back to the antechamber. Only one sin kept you away from the vault. Quinn gritted his teeth and almost snarled, Sloth. Yes, Sloth. Alan had gone through Quinn's memories, and the one sin that was as far away from Quinn was the sin of sloth. Quinn West was a busy person. He had magic to learn, and Quinn made sure to spend every productive minute of his time learning magic. So, sloth was Quinn's mortal enemy. Surprisingly, it didn't affect you that much, didn't it? Except for making sure that you didn't go to the antechamber, skipping your morning runs, and the frequent short flashes of zoning out. All you got was becoming extremely rowdy if you were awake past your bedtime. Quinn didn't say anything because it was true. The reason sloth didn't take root inside Quinn was that. Greed didn't let me be lazy, said Quinn as he stood up from the bed. The talk about sloth made him want to get away from the bed. Right, about that. I never understood why you spent that much time in the library. I know you like to learn, but the time you spent in the library was unusually lengthy. I, for a fact, know that you like to use magic as much as you like to read about it, asked Alan as he watched Quinn stand up from the bed and stretch. Quinn spoke while he stretched his body. I had tricked a professor into signing a pass to the restricted section of the library. The problem was that there is a curse on the position of the Defense Against Dark Arts position. No professor lasts more than a year. I think it has been going on for decades. The teacher I tricked was the Defense Against Dark Arts professor. A strange flash passed through Alan's eyes as Quinn mentioned the Defense Against Dark Arts professor. I was sure that the professor would be gone by the end of the year, which meant that pass would only last for a year. So, I had to make sure to squeeze the maximum out of the one school year I had. Quinn made eye contact with Alan and continued, my magic was increasing by the day, and my control was getting better, so the decision I made was to spend all my time in the library. Now that you mentioned the sins, I think greed was the most prominent sin out of all 7. It was always present in the back of my head. Guiding me to learn more and more, Quinn sighed as he leaned against a wall with his hands behind his back. Sitting in that library made you happy, and that was because greed made it such. Your greed for knowledge was fulfilled while you stayed in the library, and it affected your emotions, making you happy. Alan made some conclusions from the knowledge he had. Quinn nodded, but then he pushed away from the wall and point-blank asked. Enough of this. Tell me what happened to my magic. Alan stopped his walk and turned to face Quinn. The two stared at each other for a moment before Alan spoke up. Your mind, soul, and magic are fine. They don't have anything wrong with them. The problem is that while the curse was active, it increased your capacity and focus, but the way it was achieved was not natural, or should I say the process was artificial. Quinn felt his heart beat faster as Alan continued to speak. I don't think that curse was supposed to break down. I don't know what it was designed to achieve, but it wasn't meant to break down in the middle as it did in your case. With my knowledge, it was meant to go until the end, whatever the end was. All of this was what Alan had been able to find out from Quinn's memories and an entire night of diagnostics on Quinn while he slept. The curse had total control over your focus abilities as it was raising it artificially. So when it came undone, your bond to your magic which was being raised artificially broke down, and with it everything you had worked hard to establish. Alan pursed his lips when he saw the despair on Quinn's face. He knew that Quinn had worked hard to build his control since he was 5 years old. But now, it was all gone. Oh okay. Mr. Allen, this isn't helping me. Quinn's voice had a shakiness and desperation in his voice. What does this mean? Alan knew what was coming, but he had to continue. Your focus ability is gone completely, Quinn, and the reason your magic is lashing out is that it had been artificially raised. You weren't meant to gain that much magic in that short amount of time. Your own magic is rejecting itself and is trying to get out. This marks the end of part 19 of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.